Eddie Harris Howard is not here. Rick Dory.
Present.
Greg Stewart.
Present.
Brett McCarthy.
Present.
Dwight Dowdy.
Present.
Self Town Planner and Angie West. I'm not sure who's going to be here. So
We have a quorum.
forum.
Any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes. So at the last meeting, on the April 22nd meeting, you decided to have a public hearing on solar ordinance amendments and the parking requirement that was to meet the state 477, I think it is. And that's not noticed for this meeting. I'd like to have you entertain a motion to have it at the next meeting. And I have a couple of things to tag in there that I'd like to go over with you tonight and advertise it all at once. So when we get to that part, I just want to let you know in advance, that is not, the public hearings did not get scheduled for this evening.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, next, accepted meeting minutes for April 22nd, 2026. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2026.
For a second.
Second.
Greg seconded. Brent moved. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, old business development review. A is 90 Rural Street. You, if you want to repeat what I think all of us were there, except the lady way back. So go ahead and just please use the microphone.
There'll be people watching this.
That's right. So go ahead and give us an overview.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So you're specifically looking for the overview of the site walk?
No.
The project,
The project in
the
general?
application.
Okay, want to make sure we're on the same page. Thanks. So Eric Doobie, Trillium Engineering. I am a structural and civil engineer. And with me tonight is David Matero Architecture. And let's grab my pointer.
And if you could just let me know when you're up where you want me to go in terms of the plans. This is the plan set, but obviously it's not necessarily where you want to be.
So probably, I mean, the best thing to do, Don, is probably go right to the actual proposed plan. Correct. All the plans are at the very end. Yeah,
Is
so
there a sheet number specific?
C101. Yeah, maybe. No, you had it. That was it.
Yeah, I just scrolled too quick on
Here's
it.
101.
Yes. I think that encompasses most of what we want to.
If anyone wants to use the full-size plan set here, I have that as well. So this is it. I apologize. Let me just scroll up without zipping.
Wait. Excuse me, we have a big drawing if anybody wants to take a look at it while we're talking. Anybody? Can you see it okay up here? Would you give a 101 to?
Yeah.
That big enough for you? We got bigger ones. Okay. Go ahead.
So if you can maybe just pan down just a hair more. Looks like it's, yeah, a little challenging. Or up, sorry.
There's a way to get screen.
Yeah, that might work right there, Don. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we were in front of the board. It was been a little while. One of the specific issues, and we talked about this on the site walk, was basically working with the traffic movement permit. So at our building that was originally 6,000 square feet, traffic movement permit put us over, 100 trips per day, which at that point, we have our traffic consultant, which is Barton and Lodgeus, and they've worked with this region, which is MDOT specifically. They've worked with them a lot. And so we had an on-site meeting to talk about possible options about that and what our choices were. And specifically, one of the big issues that we just discussed was that Route 202 in Royal is a high crash incident on that particular intersection. And by the way, that happened right now with no building there, no proposed building. So DOT made us aware of that. We knew that through our traffic consultant. So we went out there and just talked about options and what they needed in that specific case. When you do a traffic movement permit over 100 trips, then at that point there's a lot of mandates that you can fall into, and specifically with DOT and doing upgrades. And the upgrades that we were looking at, that we talked about in the field, was trying to limit left turns onto Royal from Route 202, and also trying to limit left turns out of Royal onto 202. Those seem to be the biggest issue because of the site distance that essentially comes from the west or northwest, which is basically from Lewiston. So looking at some of those options, and then with our traffic consultant, they were like, okay, if we did these options, and it's roughly going to be somewhere in the range of, because they have experience with this specific issue in other towns too. One most recent one was down in Saco, and having to put in a center raised island and then widen the road to make it acceptable for DOT. And that came in, I think that bid on down there came in somewhere around 700 to, $700,000 to $1 million. And my client that was out on site was like, yeah, that's, at that point we're like, okay, well, who's chipping in what? Is it the town going to chip in? Is it going to be us? Other people? I mean, we already have, there's other businesses that are already out here that contribute to some of that. They're not going to contribute to that. So after further review, we said, what other options we have? And they said, well, one option you do have is to shrink the building and get under 100 trips and avoid the traffic movement permit. So that's why it took us a little bit of time. So we chose to do that. And that's why you see a 5,000 square foot building instead of a 6,000 square foot building. We worked with the owner. We worked with the architect, and also worked with DOT and said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So that's what we're presenting in front of you with the change. We've reduced a little bit of pavement, reduced the building size. But the main pieces of the design itself are still intact from what we had previously. So we really haven't changed. For instance, we were working on the stormwater last time we presented to you, and I think that was probably one of the biggest issues besides, of course, the traffic. So that's why it took us a little bit of time to go through that process, and then kind of come to this consensus that of where we're at. As discussed on site, it doesn't mean that we don't care about the fact that it's a high crash incident. It's just the fact that for us, that's a huge expense for the project in general. So, and I think DOT is trying to find funding for that because they know it's a high crash site, but they couldn't tell us when that was going to be funded on their end. So they're still trying to work that out as we speak. So beyond that, we talked about out on site. So we have the existing building that's basically on, page top right. And then we have and unfortunately on Royal Street, we have it's an open curb cut that happens to the existing gravel lot. So we are basically closing that and getting two curb cuts, one by the existing wood frame building with the metal roof. And then we have the other one that'll be further down, which will be basically down by the car wash. So we have that pattern because we're trying to get the most of the traffic, which will be on the 202 side, because the main entrance to the building will be here. And And then we'll have that associated parking also out in front. I call the front towards Route 202. And then in the back, we'll have some specific employee parking and other parking for the existing building. And then we'll be able to have truck deliveries, be able to come in that rear entrance, park on the side. We'll have a one-way kind of going through this, the area around the building, and then they're able to go out and then exit onto Royal Street. So that's what we had for a traffic pattern before, and that's what we're providing at this point. We do have, we talked about this last time too, is basically having a container that people can do similar to a clink and drop off returnables, and then have those picked up and brought to they process all that stuff in Lewiston. So with box trucks specifically. That's what they do now at their other facilities, and that's what they plan to do at this facility.
It's like a drop off with a card system, is it?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
There's no interface with a human being. There's no interface with a human being. It's like clink. It's
Correct. Yeah, and they'll monitor that. And we talked about site security. They'll monitor that with cameras and appropriate lighting, things like that. So that's what they do at the other facilities. We have basically our dumpster location at kind of that same offshoot on that rear side. That we can go out. There's a delivery door in the back of the building that's near that bottle drop off. And then we have some landscaping, of course, some buffering against Royal Street from the building. Of course, we kept the building nearer, or at least the side nearer to Royal Street. And again, wanted that entrance to face towards Route 202, get a little buffer from the neighborhood in general. We talked about that with the neighbors on site. And then just, be able to provide that parking that'll be facing 202. With that, we did, of course, this is an existing ditch that happens on this side of the property, Page South as is. So our stormwater treatment that we have for total suspended solids treatment and for phosphorus control going into Copascani is what we have shown here with the grading and drainage plan, that we have adequate storage and controls and basically around that parking area. So you'll see in your package, we have the stormwater report, and we also have a phosphorus report that we've worked with the local, I forget what it's called again, but the local jurisdiction on that.
Oversea Watershed,
Yes,
Bill Monagle. Bill Monagle.
correct.
Yep.
That's exactly right. The one other thing that we talked about on site is we have this existing house that's going to remain. We have access in the drive behind the building that's on our site, and that will remain. We're going to basically shut off access through our site that currently exists. And then we talked about reconfiguring these two lines of the actual lot that building is on. It is two separate lots. So we talked about reconfiguring those to be able to work within that drainage pond, stormwater pond itself. We are going to have, so beyond the landscaping, we've got some mechanical units and things like that on that against Royal Street. And that was the best place for us to put them, and then be able to have some landscaping and some screening along that edge as well. So, and then we'll have our sign, which will be located on our property, basically at the corner. The right of way out for Route 202 is pretty wide. Typically right of ways are like 50 feet wide. This one is not. It's a couple 100 feet wide. So that's just the way the property lines work with what DOT had established way back when. So that's why you see this area that's in front that is not our land will remain essentially the same. So that area is DOT owned and will end up remaining that way. So it'll be mowed field or whatever it is, and then it'll be a little bit of an area, and then over to our stormwater ponds and our landscaping and then our parking lot. So it's going to be set back further than than you would visually expect. So because of that right of way. Utilities, we've got utilities coming off from Royal Street for the most part, and connecting into the building. We have short runs with that, which also helps out, being next to Royal Street. And then we worked with the utility companies. That's in the package as well for service. So I think that's it. We did talk about lighting. I'm sorry. So we're going to have building mounted cutoff lights, and then we'll have a few light poles in the parking area. And I think we have those in the package for the photometrics. But we plan to use full cutoff lights and try to provide adequate lighting for the actual building and parking. So I think that kind of covers most of it, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Start over here with Don.
Could you come back around to me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Don? Ready? Greg?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Number one, it looks like your existing lot is maintaining the minimums for the town, but your proposed lot is exceeding the percent impervious. So as you know, our town ordinance is a maximum of 50% impervious for a commercial lot down in the downtown village district.
Correct.
So that's going to be a problem.
We're asking for a waiver on that.
I understand. The planning board can't grant a waiver. Planning board can ask, the ZBA has to grant a waiver. That's a waiver from our ordinance. So that means you're asking for a variance. The planning board can't grant a variance. So that's based on our rules, at least my understanding of our rules. My second question was, well, we discussed the traffic a little bit, and maybe we'll continue to discuss that. I understand the problem. I wanted to verify with Dawn that Royal Street is a town road.
Royal Street is not a town road.
Okay, so that,
Town maintains it.
I understand the town maintains it, but I thought I saw that in the email, and that changes potentially how we interact with DOT, and does this become a driveway, not a town road? And do we just make it a one-way out, like make it a one-way street? There's other options we could discuss that have nothing to do with the applicant, right? They have to do with the town and how we deal with the other businesses to handle change in traffic flow. We could make that a one-way street essentially, where people could go left or right, but you can't go in that way. You would only be able to go onto 202 that way. Or if it's not a town road, we could also consider, talking about actually just closing it, blocking it off entirely. So just different options that can be proposed there, that wouldn't require, massive reworking of 202. So just something to keep on the table to discuss. And I would recommend that the applicant talk with the town public works and say what we can or can't do. And if it's not a town road, it's essentially a driveway. Who maintains it, who owns it, and how do we address the traffic issue at that location? And there's already an existing traffic issue that the applicant brought up, but obviously additional traffic causes that to be even more of a problem, more than it already is. My only last question was, I might be wrong, but I'm trying to look at the plan on page C104. And it looks like the only area that you've changed over grass. So this is not your new building, the old building, the one to the upper right. It looks like you just have a grass walkway, but there were 3 garage doors on that building. Are those not used?
They're typically not used, and they're not going to be used because we're trying to bring basically some grass and some natural landscape back with a little limited parking on that, just the way it's going to be used for that building. So they're going to have to make some modifications or just use it as a walking door. You're not going to be able to pull up and back in with trucks.
Right, that's, I guess, I don't know what the use of that building was or is, and,
It's been varied uses with varied tenants.
right, and but that's maintained by it would be maintained by you. You would be the
Correct.
property owner.
Correct.
So I guess that's my only concern is a new business wants to go in there and they want to use those garage doors as garage doors. And now all of a sudden that changes your impervious even again, because they would need access to those. So I just want to make you aware of kind of I'm not sure if the concern or limitation there, but just to
Yeah.
make sure you're aware of kind of what the expectations would be, that wouldn't change. And again, since impervious is on the table in a discussion point, I wanted to make sure to highlight that as an additional concern, is that could be used, the use of that could be changed. Right now, it's all gravel in front, so it would have to be changed to vegetated, and then it would have to stay that way in order to maintain whatever the new impervious ratio was.
Correct. So the idea is to not have, and specifically for traffic, by the way, but not have people backing up and using those doors. So, which is why we've chosen to do the grass and that sort of treatment on that. So, they could still open the doors and then walk across grass and be able to use that, but they're not going to be able to drive up and, that's not the intent at all, mostly because of the traffic issue.
Okay.
So just to be clear about that. So getting back to, I guess, a couple of the other points. So the total impervious, we had this discussion last time, and we didn't talk about ZBA last time. So we talked about the fact, and we had this conversation with Don, maybe that's changed, but we talked about the fact that it could be a waiver. So I think we need to clarify that, because if we need to go to ZBA, then we need to go to ZBA and figure that out. The problem we had the first time around, maybe not as much here, but we're still up against it, is that, and this happens not just in this town, but other towns, is that you're requiring a parking requirement that says so much, but you're also limiting your impervious area. And those two don't talk to each other as well. So you're trying to kind of balance that out. I think we ended up getting it down to 57% or somewhere. I forget
58, yeah.
58%. So we're trying to really do what's right for this, but also get enough parking and the turning radius and things like that. And knowing that, again, it's your ordinance, but 50% in the commercial use is challenging.
Well, and the village is not commercial, right? We do have commercial and we have true industrial, but the downtown village district is slightly different. And we don't have the ability to change that.
I get that.
And we have had that debate. So I understand as an applicant, it's confusing to say, do I have to go to the planning board first or ZBA first?
Sure.
So, but we can't change the ordinance. The plan doesn't meet the ordinance. So
I've been on planning boards. I understand
so
that
we would
completely.
need that variance in order to approve it. So just to make sure I'm kind of making the process, it's always kind of a fuzzy process. I get it, but and each town I know does it slightly different, but we've tried to make it a point to push the applicants, if they wanted a variance, to go to the ZBA first, get their variance, and then come to us. And hopefully they don't do the same to you and push you to us instead of them, but that's the hope.
Whatever works, in the end, this is a partnership. We're putting something together with you, and, we need to work together to figure out what is best for the ordinance, what's best for the town, what's best for the client, and try to pull them all together. So, that's the intent of what in my opinion, what we're trying to do. So.
Don, did you have something to add?
I do. So Greg is correct in terms of usually, like we have a table of dimensional requirements, unless the caveat that if the ordinance allows the board, for instance, parking, you can grant a waiver from parking. And in this instance, if you look at table 3, it says that the 50% can be exceeded with a conditional use, impervious area in excess of the standard shall require a conditional use permit from the planning board. So in considering the criteria that you're going to consider when you look at the application overall, you're looking also specifically towards the addition of impervious area above what the standard is. So because it calls it out specifically, you can consider it. You'd have to make a finding that that the waiver is appropriate or necessary, however you want to word that.
No.
Yeah, generally not, but you get, that is spelled out specifically.
So, okay, so it's possible to be able to do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
It is an option. You can request it and the board can consider it.
Okay, so I think we, by note of the waiver, we are requesting it, officially requesting it, and similar to what we did last meeting. Okay. And then
Sorry?
so you want me to address questions one at a time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm addressing all the questions. So the other issue about Royal Street is, I guess my curiosity is getting the better of me on that. So if it's not a town-owned street, then can the town request that it goes to a one-way or a driveway? I guess the question is, who owns it and then has control over that? Because you're saying, oh, we could make it a one-way. Well, if the town doesn't own it, can you?
No.
So
No.
it starts to get into.
The property owner would have to be the one that would make the call, and I'm not sure who the property owner is, if it's the people that, have the car wash, or if it's the people that have the Paris Farm Union owns it.
And others have rights over it, but it's owned in fee. My understanding at this time, because we've done some research, is that it's owned in fee by Paris Farmers Union. Others have rights over it, including the town, for fire access purposes, which
So who owns it?
is unclear.
Again, who owns it?
The
Paris Farmers Union.
Paris Farmers Union, that lot,
Okay.
it's part of that lot,
So that, and then others have right of ways over it. Okay.
including the owner of this property here.
And they own it all the way to 202?
It's my understanding based on the research that we've done.
So from Main Street to 202 is owned by Paris Farmers Union.
Not from Main Street, from an area in the vicinity of what we're looking at. I have to look back at the plans, but certainly from Paris Farmers Union to Main Street and not the other, to 202, not in the other direction.
So is any part of the other, a street that is owned by the town?
I haven't looked outside of that.
Okay, all right, so that's a question we have then.
Yeah, if based on this discussion, if you give me some specific inquiry, I will follow up on those.
So I guess the question is then, Mr. Stewart, is that if that's the case and we have rights over it and the town doesn't own it and doesn't have the right to change it, do we need to do anything if we already have? Because you're asking us the question to solve a possible problem. I just want to make sure we're addressing it if it needs to be addressed.
I mean, I think as the planning board, when we're looking to approve your conditional use permit, we want to evaluate traffic. And I don't think we can do that in this case specifically without bringing Paris Farmers Union to the table. Because if they're the property owners, they have control of that driveway/road and have to be part of the discussion. If the traffic is increased and the town is now in a situation, and that could be a Maine DOT thing. It's essentially a driveway, and does Maine DOT decide that can no longer be a two-way or that wide of an entrance? It's only a driveway, and they decide to make a change. So there's a couple of different ways I could see it kind of going, depending on partially what the property owner wants and can do. What does their easement say? Is there a traffic limitation, or just does it say all parties can have access over it? It depends in part on how it's written. There's other challenges, but I think they're going to need to be involved in the discussion when we talk about traffic. And that's part of our purview for the planning board, is to address traffic, as you know, so.
Yeah, understandable on that. So what we'll do then is we'll have our title attorney take a look at the language for the traffic use, because if it says that there's no limit on traffic use, then it's problem solved.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
there.
The problem for you, yes.
What do you mean?
Well, the problem for the town is that is a bad intersection already. Increased traffic could cause an additional problem. So it's still a problem for the town. It's, and that's something
Yes.
the town, Don may have to bring up to the property owner and maybe have a discussion about what we can and can't do and what we want to do. And a lot of it may be what they're willing to do. Because if they own it, again, DOT may have to be involved if it is a traffic accident prone area. That's when they, high accident area, that's when they get involved. So.
Yeah, well, DOT's already involved, but that's why we chose the route we did for,
Right, but if it was a town road, we'd be speaking with the town, but in this case, it becomes more complicated.
all right, we'll have our title attorney look into that a little bit
And
to
if
flush that out.
you send that to me, I'll share it with our attorney
Yes,
and see if we can get
Yep.
response.
yep, will do.
Yes.
So I think we've covered enough on traffic for the time being. On impervious, have you looked at, here's my thoughts on impervious, is we tend to try to stick pretty rigidly to what the ordinance says and the limitations there. If you, and I guess we've already ruled out that he doesn't need to go to ZBA. We've got the authority to deviate from that standard if we need to. Have you evaluated removal of one or both of the other buildings to try to get yourself past that hurdle?
Well, we're just looking about our lot specifically. So the house is on its own lot. So we haven't brought that one in to answer your question. So it's really just this one. So you're talking about the commercial building that's here specifically. We had a discussion about that, but it's a rental income property. It's far enough away. It's kind of its own thing. So it's like, yeah, leaving that because we have current tenants and other things going on in there is kind of what we said. And we talked about removal of parking, but we've looked at other facilities pretty hard about, like Oxford is similar to this site. I think we mentioned that last time. And we've done kind of a parking analysis based on what that is. Comparatively, and said, yeah, we need about this amount of space. You don't want people coming in. You don't want people parking on the street, for instance, and then walking in, so those are the things that can happen. That's hard for us to control. And then it goes to PD or something, you know what I mean, for enforcement, which we don't want to go down that road. So what we're trying to do, to answer your question, is we're trying to come up with I guess a balance between what we have existing, adding the 14,000 additional impervious from what we have out there. It's untreated now and we're treating it. And then we're trying to just give what we can for parking.
Have you evaluated the square footage that you could pick up if that building was to be demolished and revegetated?
We have not specifically.
Okay. It may make the difference of your project going forward or not, is all. I'm just saying, that's from my perspective, and on the lighting,
We might look at other options besides that.
Okay, thank you.
Which is going to be reduction of parking.
Okay.
Which is not our first choice.
Thank you. Looking in your application under section J, site lighting, that's really just the technical specs for the poles. I'd actually like to see where the lights are going to be located on the actual physical site plan. Showed utility poles, I think, but I couldn't tell if those were light poles or not.
I thought we did that on the photometrics.
Drawing number on that?
The photometrics are usually just the lighting company that provides us. There's no real drawing number. They take our plan and they wash it over.
Photometrics is a diagram. It's not a drawing.
It's a drawing and
No.
it shows how where the light gets shed beyond the property line.
Yeah.
Let's add those poles to the site plan as well, if that's okay.
I'm sorry?
For a future application, could you
Yeah.
add those too?
Yes. Yeah. I thought we had, so forgive me on that.
Can you double check that to make sure? Because I'd like to be able to have that information to speak to the neighbor's concern. I know you talked about cutoff lights, but I'd like to see the actual location where the light poles are going to go.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
The only question, Don, have we got the stormwater feedback yet?
Sorry?
Have we received any feedback from Cobussy watershed on?
Not yet. And so that was one of the little points I was going to run down. I
Okay.
was pulling my notes together, but we have not yet. I've been in touch with them and he has just had a number of projects and has not been able to provide written comment yet. But he has them digitally, he has them physically. We've had, interactions and it's just one of those things, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned something about,
Chlorides, yeah, just from winter winter maintenance, snow and ice control, chlorides tend to travel with groundwater. We have a sensitive resource immediately down gradient that I'm sure Cobussy watershed will flesh out some issues. But I'd be curious to see if Cobussy does evaluate
Don,
chloride impacts.
back to you.
So does the town, do they use salt? I know DOT does.
DOT does.
Yeah. But does the town use mixture of sand and salt?
Yes.
Okay.
Don,
It's a sand salt mixture.
Yeah.
It's not the anti-icing program that DOT and many commercial entities do.
Yeah.
As you're well aware, slip, trips, and falls are certainly Achilles' heel.
Yes.
So many of the contracts are written to say every 3 inches, you've got to go out and plow
Yeah.
and apply salt. And they do not have calibrated equipment when they apply salt, and it tends to be excessive, leading to a
Yeah.
lot of impacts.
They use similar to what towns do. They use a sand salt mix for a lot of these contractors in general and that. So, but yeah, especially in front of entrances where you don't want any ponding.
Don,
I don't think I have anything new that I haven't already commented on in the past, but I'll just run through like a little bit of a broken record, right? I would advise the board to reduce parking over giving a waiver to the impervious area. And also in regards to parking, Article 4G8D, it talks about 40 square feet for each space that's to be provided for curbed and paved divider strips between parking aisles in order to provide safe pedestrian access between rows of parking. In order to provide safe pedestrian access between rows, I may have repeated myself there, proper traffic flow, lighting, and landscaping. Where feasible, such divider strips shall be oriented at right angles. So it just goes on, but basically it's talking about, it's speaking to pedestrian and bicycle flow in the parking lot, in amongst vehicles. And I think in general, it would be nice to see more attention and more thought around bicycles and pedestrians, because even though this is on 202, and we're talking about high speed and traffic location, it is on the other end of the village, and there is sidewalk up the street. And I would advise also that a sidewalk here is appropriate as well. And eventually, we would have to catch that piece, but the Public Works Director is working on a pavement management plan that'll include sidewalks. There has been sidewalk plans done here before, and there would need to be a current one, but that could be laid out and the town can be dedicating sources and to prioritize places for sidewalks. So I do think it is appropriate to discuss a sidewalk at this location.
But then if we don't own the property, can we put sidewalks?
Well, we'd have to look into it more or on the subject property, but I would be remiss not to bring it up. Because it is a village, and one of the big things is walkable, livable communities and complete streets, and it's not complete without a sidewalk. So I would like to continue that discussion. Or I would advise the board, it would be good to continue that discussion. We talked about stormwater detention, treatment and phosphorus plan, and I indicated Bill Monagle is looking at that. I'm sure he feels badly that he's not not trying to hold the applicant up. But I would also advise the applicant to reach out directly as well, to get those comments and submit them. Same with the director of the Utilities District. We have a new director since this application was originally submitted for a sketch discussion. It's Aaron Chase, and he actually used to be on the planning board, so he'll be familiar with this project. But I would ask that you would submit information to him in order to get written response. I have submitted things digitally to him, so you may start with a phone call.
Okay.
But we will need to have something in writing from Aaron specifically and from Bill. And then that section regarding the parking, landscaping, pedestrian flow sidewalk, that's a big one. Safety of the intersection of Royal Street and Route 202. There's a lot of discussion around that. That obviously still needs to stay on the table, and we'll have to do some research around that. And the board can ask for offsite improvements. You're not necessarily looking to ask for a full-blown scale of study that the DOT would require, but we should look and see if there are some accommodations that can be made that would be reasonable, that would make it safer, a win-win, some type of win-win in there. This is a little thing, but David, I didn't see labels on the elevations of the building. They were colored, but I didn't see labels of what the materials were. There were dimensions, but maybe if you're going to present that, and then we could add that to the plan. Additional buffering and landscaping. So on Route 202, there's a 25-foot buffer requirement. Buffer is not defined. So this is difficult for the applicant to apply this because it doesn't say vegetated buffer. It's a visual buffer. So this is something for you all to discuss and interpret. The note in the application says that the building setback more than 25 feet, but it's not this, it's not a structural setback, it's a buffer. So that 25 feet, you should look at that and have some discussion around what that is intended for and if that intention is met by what's being proposed. It may be that some additional landscaping would be appropriate depending on where you land on that discussion. You already talked about the hours.
It was 8 to 8, right?
Pardon me?
8 to 8.
Correct.
One moment. Those are the big things. Bike racks would be in keeping with some of the other things I've raised about bicycle and pedestrian access. I would just really try to steer people away from thinking of this as a vehicular only utilized business because we want to incorporate it into the downtown. We want people to walk there. We have a sidewalk. It could be extended. There's also, and this I'll talk to you all later, there's property adjacent to this that ties into town. There's another application that's before you that this may be able to be connected to this with a trail in the woods. So I'll talk to you about that later, but that would also incorporate it, into more of a pedestrian environment and being part of the village. So those are the things that I have. I can send this list to you as well. It's nothing new. It's but I'll send this to you.
Yes, Don? Gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. David Matero, just to answer Mr. McCarthy's question. Section J is all about the site lighting and has all the cut sheets. It also has the photometrics and it shows the location of the fixtures. I don't disagree that they shouldn't be on the site plan, but it is a drawing as well as all the cut sheets for site lighting.
And there are 4 lights in the parking lot, 5 lights?
1, 2, 3. It looks like there's 4 parking lot lights, and there's also a light on the building. And then, of course, there's lighting at each of the exits.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the audience at this point. And I'd ask the audience, if you have questions, please step up to the mic so we all can hear the question. You're all set?
Chandra Rupshanuk. I live at 24 Main Street. So when you come out of Royal Street, you take a left. That's my house. Side note, I also own a redemption center right across the street. Sounds like you have a permeation problem. And since the redemption is already filled, you could just cut that drop-off section right off your building and maybe that's going to solve your problem. But my biggest concern is the traffic. It sounds like you all did a really good job addressing it, but man, do people fly down there. They hit the gas from before Circle K by my children's store, is right at the corner, Everything Kids. They hit the gas from there all the way around the corner and they don't let off until they're past the building. So I think it's going to be really beneficial to find out who owns the land. I think that the sidewalk ends right in front of where the mill starts, where the end of the building. So that might be a good stopping point. My other concern is that Jim King is a blind citizen and he lives on Middle Street. So people are going to get smart and they're going to take a left and loop around. And that road is about 12. I don't know what the legal limit for a road is. That's it. It is tiny. And he's out there every morning walking his dog to go to the bathroom. I think that if something blocks off Royal Street, everybody's just going to take Middle Street, or they're just going to figure it out. And it's going to be a real big problem, I think, for citizens that live right there. You mentioned that cutting the building 1,000 feet limited the trips, but you didn't mention what it limited to. You're at 100 before. So how many is it? If you took 1,000 feet off the building, what is the trip count? Okay, all right, thanks. And then my question is, what's your trip count in the new Oxford or whatever building you compared it to? I think that's it.
That's it? You
I
can back up.
think.
Thank you. Can you answer a question? I'm sorry? What about online? Anybody online?
I apologize. Let me. No, see any.
So everybody in the audience has their questions. Go ahead.
So we'll make sure, first of all, to show show those lights on the site plan next time. I know David mentioned that, but I just wanted to say that for the record. So it was not just at 100 trips for what we did for our traffic analysis at the 6,000. I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was around maybe 120, somewhere in there. With the 5,000, I think we're at 97 trips. And again, these are, when you look at, this is the traffic engineer's world. When you look at trips, you're looking at max trips peak hour. So that's the way they're looking at that and what they do for their reports and the way DOT needs that. So the other question specifically about comparing it to Oxford is we compared the parking and not the trips. So just to be clear on that piece of it. So we were looking at what was required. So similar type thing, even though Oxford doesn't have a downtown village area adjacent to it. This does, but it's still mostly a drivable component that I think that we're going to see here, just in the location that we're at. So that's why we kind of compared it to that specifically for parking needs. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, any other questions? Input? Dwight?
Residential property that is part of this.
I would have to check on that. I don't know if it is or not. So.
Should be.
It would probably run down the easement. Yeah.
Okay, so you all set, Dwight? This juncture, I'd like to go, if you could tell us what you think are outstanding issues.
Well, I guess a couple of the things that need to be clarified, or we need to get some sort of consensus or at least some agreement on is, I'd like to just go around and get a sense that, so the impervious for one, so 57%. I mean, if people aren't willing to do it, then just tell us and we'll figure out what we need to do to meet the requirement. But, you know, it is a possibility for you folks to be able to approve that. So, you know, I'd like to at least know everyone's opinion on where they are in that specific issue. And then, you know, as we're talking and adding sidewalks, so adding sidewalks, for instance, you know, beyond the ownership issue, you know, we're adding more impervious. So, you know, we start doing that sort of stuff. I mean, that's fine. I just want to know, you know,
Well,
where the final number needs to be on that.
If I understand what you're asking, we don't do consensus. That said, all said and done, there's two steps for us. One of them is the application is 100% complete. That's our first step.
Yeah.
So that means that everything we've asked for, you have provided. And then the next step is either table approving or denying the application. Those are three steps. So the board has tried to do is express concerns from their perspective on certain issues. What we traditionally don't do is poll individuals to find out where they're at. And I think that's what you're asking for.
When I say consensus, whatever, you know, having just a poll so we can figure out, you know, and when I say that, it's not, it is what it is. People are going to have their opinion on the planning board and we respect that. But for us to move forward, we really need to know what that is. So the other one is traffic. I mean, you know, traffic is, it's hard, and sitting in the planning board seat, I understand that too, but you can hear from neighbors, there's issues today, and that's without any building there. So it sounds like we already have issues, whether it's the DOT or whether it's a town, that need to be solved, whether we move in or not. So that's always
Well, I'll,
always that discussion.
I guess I'll turn that around. I'm hearing that there's a question about, not a question about who owns it, as a question about what the desire is relative to that traffic pattern and path forward. And it sounds like we do have some involvement in that process. Or we have the ability to be involved in that process. Anybody want to comment on, you all want to take a survey on the issues, the individual issues?
I don't know if we want to bring up the individual issues. I think one thing that I can bring up as far as my opinion is, I think one of the things we'd want to know before we move down the impervious road is Bill McGonigal's report.
Okay.
So we really would need that as a piece before we'd make any action moving forward. Because obviously managing the stormwater is a huge factor. I can voice my opinion if you're asking for that, Rick, is I'm not a big fan of, that going against any of the ordinances, going against any variances. So I would suggest, if it was my opinion, I would say I want it at 50%. I'm fine at 49.999 or 50.000. But anything over that, I think, is something that we want to control. And a simple solution for that, we've had a lot of applicants with those questions. Simple solution for that is either the building and parking and everything gets smaller, or you get more land. Those are kind of the two simple options that we look at. And I know that that's not a simple option, but that is the option that I know I feel like is important to cover the town of Winthrop. But that's just my opinion.
With that example, or that point you were making, recently we had a project that Bill weighed in on and worked very rigorously with the applicant. And they reached an understanding or a level that could be approved, I guess is the best way to put it. And Bill was key in that relative to runoff and treatment and such. So the point just made about Bill's input, that's pretty important.
So, yeah, and I heard two competing things there, possibly two competing things. So if Bill said 57% was okay, would that opinion change from you on the 49.99 or 50.0?
For me, it would carry a lot of weight. If that was the only concern, I would potentially consider saying, okay, if Bill says there's zero impact, and all this will reduce all the phosphorus load to, a very low reasonable level, then I would be more inclined, because that's the driver. We have chloride, we have other particulates, there's other challenges with impervious areas. But given that stormwater is our number one concern, especially with the proximity to the water bodies, that's obviously a major concern. So we really need his report, what that final evaluation looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. But that helps me because I can have the conversation with Bill specifically about the, about that. We can have a stormwater discussion, phosphorus discussion. It's pretty easy. But knowing that it's still not a yes, but knowing that it's a possibility, it helps us.
Okay.
I don't know how others feel about that too.
Anybody else want?
I think the term you used earlier was, this is a partnership. Did you say partnership?
Absolutely.
So my question about your evaluation and alternative assessment of alternatives, that's going to go a long way with me. If you're talking this, we've looked at this, but there's a rent property, it's a rental, we want to keep some income. The more you're willing to divulge some of that information, it's going to make it easier for me to make a decision in terms of, does this business fit within the community? Are we working together, or are you pushing us to the absolute limit where we've got to say no on this? And you go, well, wait a minute, let's go back and look at evaluating removal of that. That's where I'm coming from, is if we're all in this together and we want to try to make this thing work,
Sure.
then let's be open and.
Yeah. Well, that's.
And I'm not suggesting that you're not doing that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from, making this.
Yeah. Well, our job, I mean, part of our job is to look at the entire, of course, this is a rental property in a business. So they're going to look at that existing building that's already being rented and they're going to say, well, yeah, if we tear it down, it costs us money. If we leave it standing, it actually makes us money. So there's
If this business goes forward, it continues to make.
it,
But-
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the intent is this business will, help that and do that. So then the other option is to reduce parking if we can't do it. And then,
Question.
yeah.
Question for the board.
Yeah, and then part of that, I mean, we can do that. I don't like that option as much because it forces people to do stupid things. And that's the honest, that is, that's the honest discussion about the whole thing is we're not the ones that have to deal with that. It turns out to either the locals or it turns out to police or the code officer. And I've seen that happen and play out, and it's just not. That's that upfront honest discussion that we're trying to have and saying is what it is, what we've tried to do our due diligence on these other properties. So, we can cut out the parking and think we've done a good deed, but then in the end, it's really disservice. And that's just me being on both sides of, yeah.
You have enough input or feedback on that subject?
Sort of just a question for the board, or even Eric for that matter. Does a previous pavement count towards our impervious surface? Secondly, we have a couple of unique features about this site that make it challenging. The setback off the main road being, there's like 50 feet of grass. Normally, our lot line would be much closer to the road, which would give us a lot more impervious surface. So that has been a challenge for us working with trying to put in the appropriate amount of parking and a building on this site. Secondly, traffic is a concern, but if increasing traffic is a hurdle, it's essentially an undevelopable site because no matter what happens there, if anything happens there, it's going to increase traffic. And, right now it's an empty lot. And I think what we're trying to do also is, add a business to the town, but, I think there's a big investment happening in this property, and I think it is going to improve the site.
I think your question about porous pavement would go a long way. Like Brent was saying, there's a lot of different studies out there about the different types of porous pavement, how effective they are. And they do solve. Unfortunately, we can't directly account for that because it's not in our ordinance.
Okay.
But if we have the ability to approve something above 50 without a variance, that would go a long way for somebody like me, who's a hydraulic engineer and specifically understands the infiltration is a lot better if you can put it through porous pavement versus going through regular traditional asphalt where the runoff has to be treated directly with a runoff stormwater drainage basin. So just letting you know that goes to, I'm just parroting basically what Brent just said, saying that, making sure that we want to work with a partner. We want to make sure that we're going to have somebody that's going to cooperate and respect the other homeowners, the other property owners when this business is up and operational. So we want to be thinking about those things because part of our mission or our guide is to protect the citizens of Winthrop, whether they're here or whether they're not. So thanks.
Have you enough feedback on that subject?
Yeah, I can so I'll start with the porous pavement and my take on it is I think it's a really good idea. And I think in Maine, in New England, it's very difficult because what people don't understand and the hidden truth is the fact that when you use sand and or salt, you plug up, it's a filter, right? It's like any filter. You plug that filter up. So if you're not using a regular vacuum truck and getting the particulates out, so I'll equate it to this. I've ripped up plenty of carpet in homes, after you had it. And if you ever look at that, you look at the carpet, you look at the mat, and then when you rip up the mat, you have a layer of sand it's about that thick because that's what you can't vacuum it out. So that's the problem. I think it's a great idea. New England is very difficult. just because of the winter conditions and
And
way
many
we
of the
go.
studies, I completely agree. I'm just,
Yeah,
and again, maintenance is absolutely key with keeping those functional and
It's
it's not
huge.
very cost effective.
it's huge.
But vacuuming at least twice a year is absolutely critical.
Yeah. I mean, LL Bean just did those parking lots down there in Freeport and they are maintenance intensive. I can tell you that. So that's that piece. The other piece about trying to be respectful of the development, I mean, so the way we've oriented the site, the fact that, so the way we've oriented the site, we talked about that. We have two buildings kind of in the way between, the houses, the houses that are further down the street and the neighbors. So we're getting kind of double protection. We have our new building and we have the existing building. They provide some height, protection from light pollution, things like that, and some of the noise because the entrance is completely on the 202 side. So we're trying to be very respectful of that, keeping that traffic, keeping, car door slams, opening this, that, and keeping that on that side of the building. So, so that's where we're really trying to think about those neighbors on that piece. And then the other piece, of course, is the stormwater. Yes, I know we have to do it, but we're talking about a completely untreated site right now. And it's been that way for a long time. And now we're providing complete treat. And by the way, I mean, we're adding 15,000 square feet, but it already has gravel and other, impervious surfaces that are left untreated and go right into the resource. So we're, we're adding in the stormwater treatment system, which is pretty, it's pretty involved. So we're trying to be very respectful of the resource, the town, and everything on that piece. So.
All right, back to the summary. What's the feedback you have that you need to do work on?
Well, I mean, I think I've got feedback on the percentage, so we'll work on the stormwater first. At least on the review piece of it. We know what we've done. We've had conversations with Bill, just so we're clear. We've worked with him on other projects. We've worked with him throughout this project too. That's how we arrived at what we have. So it's not like we did it in a complete vacuum on that. So it's been good discussions with him, and we'll continue to work on that piece. The traffic piece is the hard one. So, I mean, we keep saying we need to do something, and I hear Don, and we'll reach out to the town, we'll reach out to DOT, but we'll have to talk to our title attorney about the street because there may be limitations about what we can do for control and for sidewalks and then those sort of issues like that. But we can certainly, if that filters out, we can have this conversation with DOT and with the town. But we've already had the conversation with DOT. I mean, maybe they'll come back with something lighter or something, but I mean, it all adds up to cost. And the fact that we were at such a high number and we're the ones out of everybody using it, we're the ones paying that cost, that's just a no-go. So if you're asking us to put in, if we come back to the same spot, and I hear Don saying maybe you can come to a lighter, kind of consensus. Maybe, but DOT usually likes things a very specific certain way. I mean, we work for DOT, David and I do. So, not the traffic department, but other departments on that. But they usually want things very specifically. I'm certainly happy to have that discussion, but I can tell you right now, it's my client, it's going to put this project way over budget if we're talking about those sort of numbers. Even a $500,000. You know what I mean? That's just. And that's what the requirements are for them to do those controls that really are going to take effect in the whole thing. So
what are the points?
So that's I'm just having an open, honest conversation about how that really works, and we can. I guess we could have that conversation and come back and give feedback, but I don't want you just to hear it from me either. I mean, I want this, again, it really needs to be part from the town, part from DOT and whatever else. I know they've given us feedback, DOT has, with their response.
So Don, you proposed a meeting with participants from the town.
Yes, I think that interaction and discussion is critical. One in the same room, because you can have a meeting with this one, this one, this one. I think that coordinating meeting for all of us.
You're willing to organize that, are you? Can you organize that?
Yes, I can.
Do you understand what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We do
So-
it all the time.
So let's make that happen. on that subject? Okay, what other points? That's it?
I think those are the two. I mean, we've already, I know Don talked about landscaping and some of the other stuff. I mean, we've already provided some landscaping that you see on this drawing. So, I don't know if you're talking about things additional to that,
Well, I just
besides the
see notes that
25-foot buffer.
specifically met. So there's actually a number. There's 40 square feet per parking space, and I didn't see any statements how that was or was not met.
Got it.
And it's the address.
Okay.
Okay, given that, are we anywhere near, Dawn, are we anywhere near application complete?
Yeah, I think you are. I mean, Bill Monaco has the information. We don't have control over his schedule. And so the applicant did provide the information. We have had interaction with the superintendent of the utilities district. It was just prior to, I have sent the recent stuff to him. So I do believe that the pieces are there.
Okay.
And I think that it is complete for the purposes of,
Was it in order for us to make that motion?
I believe so.
Even though we don't have Bill's report?
Because we don't have control over his schedule.
I
The
understand.
applicant has done the piece that they.
That can be part of the motion anyway, right? That's,
Right, but Bill's a representative for DEP, and I mean, that would be, normally we would want that report before. I know we've done it both ways before, and I wanted to just check that.
Not for a decision. We're saying just
I understand, just
Yeah.
for the application being complete.
keep moving.
And
Yeah,
I
I'm
think-
not-
Your comfort level, but that's my thought.
Right, but there's two questions that are still outstanding. One is traffic, one's impervious cover. And then, getting the phosphorus report. And if the applicant was willing to look at alternatives, do we want to vote this complete and then they come back with proposed changes?
I'll just remind you that the deadline is to protect the applicant and the town, so that if the process goes on ad infinitum, that someone can say, hey, the window's up, we want to make a decision. Either the applicant say that, or you can say, hey, you didn't provide us the information, so we're going to make a decision. So I think as long as the applicant and the board are on the same page moving forward, I don't see any problems.
Okay.
Can I ask a process question? So we're just talking about checklist complete, right?
Thanks.
And then we still have to deal with final,
Yeah.
So I mean, at that point, yeah, we're going to address these issues for final. We're not getting by final with that. So if we have it complete, then we're going to continue to move forward, whether we're at 57 or 50, the plan is still going to look relatively the same.
so, anybody want to make a motion? Application. Brent made a motion. Application's complete.
I think too is, I think between traffic and impervious are the two.
Major ones that, do I hear a second? Don seconded. Discussion. White?
No, again, I think just as we've got a checklist. The applicant's provided all the information that we've requested, but I think from a processing standpoint, we've got enough information to start the actual process.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so the application's been, okayed as complete. And now we have the two big issues and whatever sundry issues associated with it. And so our expectation was Bill's report or his feedback on this project. And result of the meeting with the appropriate parties in the town and yourselves relative to traffic. And you also mentioned about legal folks looking at, the right of ways and easements and what the status of Royal Street is and so on. Any questions?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, folks. Ma'am in the back, did we answer your questions? Thank you. Number 6, other business. The solar generating system ordinance. Now, we understand it's not a public meeting, public hearing rather,
Correct.
on this, on this subject, but it is further in the discussion. Are we prepared? Greg, are you going prepared to share with us beyond what you did the last meeting?
Well, I sent the entire
That's in this
updated,
package?
I don't know.
Is that in this package?
I didn't-
Yes.
Greg's feedback?
Printed, yep.
I don't know. I didn't look at the back.
Let's look at it.
I know I sent it.
It was incorporated into, I think, in the email I sent, one of the emails, and it's also printed.
Help me out. Where's the? I see it now, right here. This is the Greg Stewart email. The language, that what we're talking about,
Like this. Yep.
Yep.
This one.
that's it. It's right in the,
Yep.
you want to talk about it, Greg? Further talk about it
Sure. I think I addressed all of the topics that we had
from the last meeting?
from the last meeting. I took all the questions and comments.
And so the next step would be to write this into the ordinance.
I wrote it into the ordinance and sent it to Dawn. I don't know where that version is. I've got it on my phone, but
You had an amended text that went with those notes?
yeah, I had the entire email I sent you like a week before.
I didn't see.
Yeah, because I had 5 more bullets beyond the ones you had,
Oh.
and I addressed them all.
These
I can-
original 5 right here? These are original.
Those were 5 she had AI generate, but I had 4 more. So on top of those,
So you don't have those here?
Apologize. So he sent me an amended ordinance. I just saw this. I didn't see that.
Oh.
If you want to continue the discussion, I can go find it and print some. Or
I
what
can
you
at
want to
least,
handle it.
I can highlight what I added. Cause yeah, right there. April 22nd, sent you their amended words.
Do you want,
That
won't
should-
take long for me to go ahead and do that?
I just make sure.
Oh, April 22nd, he's saying was the,
Yeah, but it doesn't show me the red text on this one, cause it's my phone. Well, let me go, maybe I got that's what I was gonna, I can probably come close, but
oh. You can if you set it up, but mine's not set up though yet.
yes. Yeah, it's in red. I still don't have the attachment. It's on the cloud. But I said the edits I made in red text. So I added a replanting survival rate to 215-5-C-3, section 3. So I give
Date of that.
the 27th of April. So I just copied our plant survival from the ordinance and added that to this ordinance. So for the vegetated buffer, they had to have an 80% survival after, I think it's like for the life of it. That's just, I just copied it out of our ordinance and put it in there. So the replanting. Solar facility limit, we went to 10 facilities, period, because we already capped the size. So we just put 10 and that absolutely is open for debate. That was just the number we kicked around. So I was like, okay, we'll go with 10. I removed the third-party inspector requirement. Also, much of what I call the specific electrical requirements that I put in there and just basically said they had to give us a copy of what they sent the state. I added a security plan, like Dwight suggested. I didn't put specifications behind it because when I started looking into it, there are state specifications. It's pages and pages and pages. And I said, I don't want to try to I didn't even want to cite it because it's been updated twice in the last 3 years. So like, which one do I cite? And I just said, they need to supply a security plan and we'll go from there. That just puts it on their list that they have to give us one. So I left that one really simple. And I added the requirement to come back to the planning board. So I said, if they don't reach a substantial start after 1 year, they have to come back to the planning board. So they can't just basically go to the code officer. That's a mandatory requirement. And that's substantial start we define in our ordinance. It's 30%. Yeah, and I didn't specify it beyond that. I just said 30% is what we specify in our ordinance. So I just use the same verbiage. I removed almost all of the alls. I had to leave one, sorry. Um,
Check that out.
would appreciate that, yeah. I reread them all and all but except one of the alls could be removed. Because one of them was defining like all of the applicable ordinances and I'm like, well, that you have to leave in anyways. Well, those are the changes that I made.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess while we wait for Don. You did. You
The
did.
other done.
I didn't.
Does anybody have an eye?
Yeah.
Make it light so I can read it.
You in the settings?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it goes bright, lighter. I just can do it. But I run this as my paper.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever done that before.
Mine get awful dim, but have it black.
That's always fun.
I get under the.
There's new emojis.
You can-
So dark.
That's as good as it gets. I said, "Oh, get the direction.
Brightness is turned all the way down.
Some.
I have flagged to look into more.
The one accessing, the primary access into Main General, right?
That's Mechanic Street. The other one is a town street. Mechanic Street is unclear to me.
Street said it was.
It may be.
Sure, the other road is one way, the narrow road is town way.
That one is because I've talked to the Public Works Director about it and Fire and Police. They're talking about the ability to get vehicles in and out.
Okay, call the meeting back to order. Do you have copies here?
I distributed.
Where are they?
It says draft in front of you.
I got it. Thank you very much. Rick, anything to add? Now you have a copy. You went through the,
Well, I added
Additional, right?
definitions, the definition solar facility limit. I added that to the definitions and that's exactly the new section that I added as well. So the verbiage should be the same. It's going to be
everything's here then.
section Q. Yeah, this is with the new format. So, so again, added to vegetated buffer, which is section C. Now I'm in section 215.5. In the approval section, section C, added the 3, which is the planting. 80% survival for a minimum of 5 years. That's directly out of our ordinance. So I just copied the survival rate. And then if you go to the bottom of the next page, 215-6, it's section O, copy the lease agreement from the current landowner. Yeah, that was another one we asked for, just so we have it in the record. And then the P is the complete plan, basic installation steps that we discussed, kind of like different steps, like installing the panels, mounting the panels, running the wires, whatever. Just lays out how that we want them to send us an installation plan so we have it. And that's really so the code officer has it and it kind of exists. U is the solar facility limit. Again, set it to 10. That's open to debate, but that's what kind of we discussed or kicked around that number. R is the applicant must have the detailed electrical plan. Again, I simplified that, removed the third-party inspector. So that was in there. I just removed the rest of it. Section S is the applicant must provide a detailed solar facility security plan. Again, didn't cite the state because it is crazy what their requirements are. So I just kind of said they just have to provide a security plan. And the last one is, the applicant must meet the town requirements for substantial start, or the applicant must reapply to the approval must reapply for approval from the planning board. That was in case at some point we changed the substantial start requirement in the town from 12 months to 24 or something weird, then we wouldn't have to change this ordinance. So that's why I wrote it that way instead of copying the ordinance. If that makes sense, everybody. They have to come back to us if they don't have a substantial start in 12 months. It's 30%.
It's 30%.
Yep, and that's what our ordinance says. So
So they're getting to the end of their permit. They haven't done much.
they have
Gotta
to come back.
to us.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Mark can't extend it. They have to come back to us.
Okay, that's what.
They have to reapply. Yeah, that's what section T is. They have to reapply.
Anything else, Don?
No.
Ready?
Rick,
And he's got, he's proposed, there's 12. Took the size out.
Yeah, we took out because we limited the size of a facility with already in the ordinance. We already said this is the size. So we took out, and we talked about capacity changing. So we kind of said number of facilities seemed like the best limiting factor. Because if we use like megawatt output and they made new panels in 5 years that could do 10 times as much, well, then how would that work? So so that's a really hard one to kind of keep track of. We limited the size of these facilities very clearly that they can only be so big. So they really can't be monstrous seas of solar panels anyways. So by just limiting it, and again, I wasn't the one that picked 10. It seemed like that was a consensus. So I'm more than willing to. Well, we had 11, I think. Well, no, we had 11, I think, that had been approved, but we know the one on Route 41 is gone, and we know several others are not going to be built. So we know I know the landowner on 41 has said they are not building. Like they've given back the lease, they're not paying him anything. The farmer is,
Locating all the sites. This is the 12 sites.
the R12.
Some were free,
It's rooftop commercial.
quite a few after.
Oh, okay.
And after,
Just gonna ask for the 30, where you get the 30%.
From our ordinance. Yeah, it's from we have substantials to start defined in our ordinance.
Full ordinance.
No, in
Oh,
our
okay.
big ordinance, sorry, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I have a comment, Rick,
wait a minute.
when you're ready.
Going around. Are you done? You haven't got any questions, right? Brent? Dwight?
Yeah. 15-4, item E.
I just took out all, that might have been their original.
It's not, there just says E.
Oh, that could be the reform. Okay, that's a reformatting thing. Yep, that's just a return. Because this is I rewrote this with Don gave me the new format and I put the changes in here. So that's just something needs to be removed. Yep. Yep, good point. Yep.
I think I've expressed my
Wouldn't it be better if we put the 30
Good.
down ordinance? Because somebody's reading this, they may not go back and read that ordinance.
We could. I mean, the only reason to do that is if we change it in the town ordinance, now we have to change both potentially.
I personally would like to see
Yeah,
to the town ordinance.
let Don finish.
Don, you all set?
I am extremely uncomfortable with the idea that we're adding and buttoning up the rules. And I know that the project on 41 did not meet the year to start criteria, most likely did not meet the 2 years to be essentially complete criteria, and isn't going to meet the 3-year criteria. So while we're buttoning up these rules, and I know this is not within the planning board's authority, but certainly as a group, you could make an issue of it with the powers that be. You know, why weren't the rules enforced in the first place? And here we sit buttoning up the rules after the fact, when there were a lot of rules in place that would have kept things
Talking about
a bit more buttoned.
202.
202. And so you don't have the authority, but Coolidge does. And Coolidge works for the town manager. I don't have any idea if Anthony's aware of that or not, but I don't understand why that kind of thing is permitted. And a comment was made to me that there are a lot of other ones like that, quote unquote. Okay. So I kind of suspect this has been going on for a while. And I just feel like, you know, you as a group, you know, have enough clout, if that's the proper word, you know, to make an issue of this. Here you are buttoning up the rules. And I feel almost like you're doing that because the rules have been abused in the past. And there's just still a legal pathway. You know, I mean, I feel bad for the business people on the 202 project. Fact is, they weren't in compliance and they're being allowed to get tickets. You know, and it's no different than, you know, the homeowner that gets a permit and doesn't start, put its foundation in until 2.5 years later. I mean, it's all the same.
You want to tell them, Don, or you want me to tell them? We've been happening on another project consistently for 2 years. And might as well talk that wall right over there. And we've been told that we have no authority relative to code enforcement. but we still keep trying to find out and justify what's going on in that particular project and others. And so we'll continue to do that as you've asked, but it's falling on deaf ears. We have no authority over that. Okay? And we look at it every day. Significant, what appears to be a significant issue.
Would you like an update on that?
Sure.
Yeah, I really wasn't aware of how hard you folks were pushing back on it. And I do appreciate it. I really do.
Don?
If you want me to send a message to the council, I'm already in so much trouble. Doesn't matter. So tell me if you want me to tell them something.
The answer is going to be, we have no authority in that period. Go ahead, Don.
So there is, I've been asked to attend, let me grab on my calendar. There's a consultant who's working for the owner of a property that's been in violation that everyone has been concerned about. And there's been communication and over the winter, they come back in the spring to come up with a plan and remedy some of this and, start making some changes on the face of the earth. And there's supposed to be a meeting, apologize. What? Wednesday morning.
The consultant is on.
I don't know offhand. But it's next week and I believe it's Wednesday.
This is about the 202 project?
No. But it is moving forward and I have been asked to be on the periphery of it, partly because you need witnesses, right? But it is moving forward and,
So leave it alone
survey
then.
has been requested. I've been asked to attend and I asked some basic information and I'll know more after that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
As-built survey. Yeah.
Okay, back to the solar panel ordinance. Well, you need to know. You need to know that there's, we're trying. And Don, thank you for that update. All right, so back to the solar, back to this, I've lost control. Back to the solar audits.
Got a gavel.
Where we stand now, I heard no other input for Greg to revise or work on other than the E. He's taking care of
Take the E out. Yeah.
Good there. So the next meeting is the public hearing on this as well as the public parking, right? Which we're going to cover in a minute. So let's not go
Yes.
there.
Other things if you.
A couple other things
When that
you're going to
yeah.
come to, but
Um,
relative to this one, the next meeting is public meeting and the intention would be for us make a motion and vote on going forward with this and resubmitting it to the council. Is that correct?
Correct. If you could make a motion tonight, because you did it the last meeting for tonight, but if you could make another motion to have it
As a public meeting,
will be posted with hopefully a few other things. You'll have the public input and then you'll make a motion at that meeting. Forward it.
we have that verbiage here somewhere.
Yes. On
Sure.
page 2 of the email, the agenda that had all notes on it. Cheat sheet agenda. Underneath comments in blue, it says action and then a motion made by, and it's a suggested motion to schedule a public hearing. Blah, blah, it's at the bottom of the page.
Okay, there it is on page 2 of 5.
Action at the bottom.
Go to your agenda, second page.
Sir?
Go to your agenda,
Oh, the agenda, okay.
second page. Very bottom. Greg's gone through everything for revisions. We've all reviewed it, with our input. And we're now ready to, make a motion to schedule as a public hearing on 5/27. Who would like to make that motion?
I can make a motion.
Would you read it, Greg?
I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing on May 27th, 2026 to consider amendment to the solar energy generation system ordinance as outlined by this meeting. Is that all you need?
Here, a second?
I'll second.
Don seconded it. Greg made it. Discussion. All in favor? All opposed? So vote. All right, we're moving on to all right, we're on B, right?
Yep, off-street.
6B, parking and loading, street parking and loading, off-street parking and loading. Okay, talk to us, Don.
Yep. So at the last meeting, this has come up a number of times just because it's been in the pipeline, but the state had mandated changes to parking in growth areas, which is supposed to be taking away one of the impediments, the ability to build housing. Frees up more land area. So the state says you can't require more than one parking space per unit, per dwelling unit in the growth area. So that's all this is, a change. Instead of requiring two, we're requiring one in the growth area. And when I post this, I'm going to post the map that goes along with it.
Dwight, any questions? Greg?
No.
There's suggested motion language when you're ready.
I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, the growth area, that is actually the zoning map. The growth area, you should have a copy of that in your binder, but it's from the comprehensive plan. And it says, if and when there's growth, this is where we want it to go. We're going to direct it to these areas. And so it's defined on a map. And so anything that's in that area, the state says, you have to change your parking requirements, because if that's where the growth is going to go, take away that impediment so that parking's more easily, so that housing is more easily built. No, it's a significant area. It's in the comprehensive plan. Someone should have one because it's in the binder. Yeah, which I have stacks for you guys still. And while you're looking, I'm meeting on Wednesday with his name is Ben Meter, and he's from the company that did our tax maps. And he is coming in, and he got a contract to, with the grant money that we got from the state to implement these changes that they've mandated. And so he's creating a sewer and water layer for us, two different layers, which will be super helpful. And he's going to take the growth area and he's going to make that a layer, because right now all I have is the static PDF images. I can't overlay it.
When does that go live?
There. We never gave.
If you have,
I think that's at home. I don't think that's in my, I do have it at home. I didn't put it.
you have it.
I'm still,
It's not something you bring to everything necessarily,
I wouldn't have it.
but I had
Wouldn't have
provided
it in my binder then.
fairly recently because,
Okay.
Nothing.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing to Article 4.12.g on May 27th, 2026.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? On to C.
So this is, we've talked about this in passing. It was pertinent to tonight, as a matter of fact, because there's a section in the ordinance that speaks specifically to Route 202. I think there's 4 criteria. And it has to do with buffer, it has to do with access management. But I think that it was unintended consequences. The maps changed. It doesn't apply to any land area currently. When I go through the history of everything, it clearly seems intended to apply along Route 202. What it says is it applies to industrial zoned parcels on 202, of which there are none, because I think mapping got put over it, a different zone. So my suggestion is that we simply change. Sorry, one moment here. Oh, so the information that goes with this, it was, one of you had the zoning map up earlier. So the change is just to strike, it says that in accordance with the comprehensive plan, instead of saying all commercial and industrial development in the industrial zoning district along Route 202, it'll just say all development along Route 202. And so that would include residential and commercial. And it does speak specifically in those 4 criteria to residential development. So it seems appropriate to leave it at that. And then just to remove, there's a reference to a ramp in number 1 and number 3. I don't think we want to require ramps if it's not an appropriate in a circumstance. It may be, but I don't think it should be a required element.
Ramps?
Yeah,
You're talking building access ramps?
Yeah.
Or you're talking,
on 202. Yeah. So I thought maybe, but I wouldn't say that's standard.
how big is the buffer zone defined on the zoning map? Do you have is it like 200 feet? On either side? I'm just guessing. Yes, what's the width of this buffer zone? And are we gonna unintentionally include like the end of dead-end streets? I'm thinking of Clark Street and a few of the other downtown streets that come over and dead end to 202. And then if we expand it, does that make them all of a sudden commercial, even though there's no connection to 202? I'm just worried about, I haven't looked at the map enough to know whether that covers anything or not. You're saying the buffers that apply aren't applied right now because of our unintended or some unintended change to the ordinance? Huh. Is the 202. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Andy, go ahead. Andy, use a mic, please.
I'm still coughing and I hate when them mics down there.
Well, I'm sorry, we'll hear you cough
I'm
louder.
sorry. I couldn't tell you that I worked with David Lee and the then planning board. And the idea was to make 202 commercial from one end of town to the other, just the zone 500 feet back. That's what we did, excepting certain environmentally protected zones like the water supply and where Cobbossee Lake was and Little Cobbossee and all come out to 202. Okay, and then Bill Monaco got involved in it and he asked us to protect across the highway from the Narrows, the public water supply. So there was one little section there that we protected. But the idea was to just flat out commercial use one end of town to the others and eliminate that whole hodgepodge. And I don't recall that we put any buffers or anything in.
Don't mind, does this fix that?
Yeah, it would complicate it too. Our idea was to not complicate things, to get things a little less complicated. We had residential areas and commercial areas, and then there's 3 different kinds of commercial. And we just said,
So what this section is, it isn't, uses aren't involved. It's really about streamlining traffic through on 202. By design, by minimizing curb cuts, building ramps apparently, but, so I don't think it'll have the negative effect to what it is you were trying to do.
I'm not in a position here to recommend what you do or don't do. I'm only telling you what
History,
was.
Yep.
back-
history, right. Dwight?
Can I click? DOT granting permits, curb cuts on 202.
No, the state would.
DOT.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Development, so before there was a zoning district, the industrial zoning district, you could look at where the lines were at. Now we're taking that away and you're saying anything along 202. So, yeah, what does along 202?
Back.
We
Yeah, because it said a
we
specific.
said 500 feet back from the state right away on 202. So along 202 would mean abutting 202. I would
See
think.
it, buddy.
That's, yeah.
The long to be doesn't connotate it.
Well, we just
Yeah,
need to
it
start
would
to
be
find
abutting.
Measurement from someplace. Be the state highway.
Right.
So this,
Yes.
Our definition of long. I'll talk.
is it? Is it a vegetative buffer? Because it's not defined. I don't know what it is. No, buffer.
Retail business, you won't make it.
But yes, but. Know where it's at.
Vegetated could be grass. It doesn't have to be trees like a solar buffer that's specifically.
Well,
We aren't defining a height. We're saying vegetated, not paved, not impervious. So that's a different.
it is different and you should be more specific. You should tell a buffer, grass, is grass the buffer that you're intending? Is it supposed to be a visual buffer?
That's the question.
And if it is it a combination of fencing and landscaping? Is it just landscaping? You know what I mean? Like there's options.
Where's your joystick?
In Falmouth, they have these like ha-has, which are mounds. You don't see the buildings as much.
Businesses, we may be okay with grass, certain businesses may not.
Or you can apply that fairly.
like to apply the general terms, you know that.
I know you do.
If you over define it, people can, use it if they can understand it and manipulate it. So, you know, a vegetated buffer doesn't say, or just say non-impervious buffer. Well, no, I like vegetated. That's really.
But didn't we have that example in our solar ordinance? We had to fix. One of the issues was the buffer, right?
Well, no, we didn't specify their work plan. So they said they're ripping it all out and adding the buffer after. And we didn't have a work plan, so we didn't know that was their plan. So there was nothing wrong with the way the ordinance was written. We didn't ask the question and we didn't have a work plan. So
Okay.
now we have a work plan.
But that's an example of what we're talking about.
Exactly, exactly.
Brent, anything else? Greg? Ready? On.
Yeah, because I'll post it for the public and make it available, so you
Okay.
guys can have
Yeah.
that, yeah,
See what's-
before you make a motion to go to the council. And you may make changes at that point.
No.
I believe a definition of buffer would be helpful,
I
but
understand.
yeah, okay. Nope, that's it. I'll add or establish.
Who wants to make a motion?
Else.
I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing on the proposed changes to Article 4.13.d on May 27th, including the at least definition of buffer to move it to a vegetated buffer.
Here a second? Brent seconded? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Don, for the public hearing, it might, it would help. Dwight made the point, you know, on the previous question about the map. If we could somehow, you've got bigger maps that show that corridor, right? That show that, what it looks like.
Yeah.
We should have that here or put it up here on the screen, one or the other. I mean, just so the audience can see it. So it's part of the presentation versus
Yep,
answering a question.
yep,
Okay.
can do that.
All right, moving on. D,
Pardon me? All the alls?
take all the alls out.
Can't do that.
Detail, you know,
I'm lost. I'm just,
there's one all.
well, I have bad English. Is that what we're saying?
Ball and olive ball.
Oh, y'all,
All you all and you all.
two Alabamians here.
Moving on to D, keeping chickens on residential property.
That's just a change, right? To change it to no in the village to planning board.
Yeah, yes,
That's it.
correct,
Table
because we
chicken.
have to allow them. So by conditional use permit as opposed to yes.
Greg, do your thing.
Okay, I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the proposed Article 3.1 or .11. I don't know, it's a good question.
11.
It's supposed to be
It
11,
is
but
dot
it's
one,
gone,
dot
isn't
11,
it?
Table 2, on May 27th, 2026.
There's a second? Eddie's got a second over here. Discussion?
So it's keeping chickens on residential property, but then we talk about livestock keeping and livestock keeping definition. And the definition doesn't include, oh, it does, okay, poultry, I'm sorry. But I do notice, so is it for livestock or is it specifically for chickens?
So it is for this is the way it is now, is that livestock keeping is defined and it's allowed everywhere except for the village. And because it includes poultry, the easiest thing to do to address this is to allow it in the village. You can carve it out and have a different definition and just allow poultry in the village.
We're not allowing cows or pigs,
It
Well,
would be a planning board.
potentially.
but you can keep chickens
Well, you have to,
without planning
the
board.
state ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you have to come to the planning board
Based
in
on-
the village for chickens. But it does, because I just referenced that, potentially there could be other things, but they'd have to come to the planning board for that approval.
So does chickens include roosters?
No, they're female. I'm wondering if I should, so the state has a definition that excludes male.
We could send all the roosters to Bill Monagle's house.
No
He loves roosters.
I'll add that to it. Exclude male.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, and
Dwight.
also, just there, in between the definition of, well, I guess, page 4 of 5, we talk about livestock such as horses, cattle, sheep, poultry, goats, and pigs. And then when we go down below, we don't talk about all the same animals for livestock keep. So I just copy horses, cattle, sheep, poultry, goats, and pigs, or just add pigs to the livestock keeping definition.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We were inconsistent in the two.
Yep, I hear you. So just make it consistent. Okay.
You're waving over there, you got a point.
I was waving.
Just,
I would only ask that you be as clear as possible. In my 30 years on the ZBA, this was a constant problem.
Yeah.
You know, the code enforcement officer would say, that's livestock, it can't be in this zone. And they bring their little girl in and say, oh, that horse is my, you know, it really got ridiculous. And then the other issue was, if you're going to be more liberal about allowing livestock, need to say something about whether or not you're allowed to butcher them. Okay.
so in the village,
That's. Just saying.
I was gonna say.
so in the village, you want to preclude some of the larger livestock? We're required to allow chickens. That's the only thing the state's mandating. So we don't have to use the livestock definition. If you think there's going to be concerns, smaller lots in the village, you could change that. We're going to post it to public hearing. So we'll see if people are paying attention, if they'll come in and make comment as well. Well, I guess I'm just saying that would meet the requirement of the law. Because it's already laid out in the ordinance. That way it was the easiest.
We'd have to add another line. Well, but livestock's already,
Any other input?
we'd have to leave
But you would if we make this change.
and exclude poultry.
Well, you don't have to.
One.
I think that's but
We have to.
because it's just consistent with what other places
All in favor?
allow. Do you want to preclude any? Do you want to go with the existing livestock keeping, or do you want to section out chickens for village?
What's the board's decision?
I'd say chickens, chickens only.
We have one says chickens. I have another one saying chickens.
Okay.
I have another one saying chickens.
We're gonna, so
It'll take some more editing.
I was gonna say, so we're not ready for this one. What we're requesting, I won't make a motion, but I'll basically make a clarity and say, what we're saying is that we're gonna leave livestock alone the way it's defined, except for we need to remove poultry from the definition, make its standalone and call it chickens, and then add that to the table.
Oh,
Add pigs.
that makes sense.
Like livestock and chickens. Livestock.
Well, but we can't have chickens. You can't have chickens.
Prohibited, livestock is prohibited with the exception of chicken.
Okay, yes, I see what you're
You
saying.
get that down?
Did.
All right.
The Pope
So
Christians.
is it feasible to make these minor changes and still have it the public hearing? You okay with that?
And I'll remind you that, so we'll post this, and the language will be available. And there may be changes as a result of the public hearing and discussion, as long as it's not a substantive change, which would need to be renoticed, so that people would be alerted to have an opportunity for more public input. You can tweak it. So there is that opportunity, but I believe
Greg.
I understand what you've said this evening.
Make your motion, Greg.
Yes, so I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the proposed changes for Article 3.11, Table 2 on May 27th to include making the section Article 4.13B align with Article 6.16 definitions for livestock match, as well as excluding chickens and from livestock and adding them to our table 3.11, table 2.
There's a second on that.
Seconded.
Seconded, Brett. Discussion? Did you catch all that, by the way?
This is a well-oiled machine. I did actually.
Real hard to catch chicken.
I've never tried.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All right. I'm now moving to other business.
149 Main Street, Friday afternoon after you and I met. Hockey stop in my email box, some information. Just the email, just digital copies. It wasn't out of, and it wasn't worth contacting you to put it on the planning, on the agenda because I didn't even have time to look at it yet. But I wanted to apprise you that they did do that, and ask if you wanted to. So you tabled it to this meeting. If you want to table it to the next meeting, we don't have to notice again. But, you know, at some point, if you feel like we're dragging that out too much and we should notice, then you could just table it without date and time specific.
Well, so a motion's in order for 7 to table to the next meeting,
The 27th meeting.
the 20th.
Motion to continue this item on May 27th, 2026.
There a second? Dwight seconded that. Discussion.
None from me.
Discussion over here. All in favor? You.
Good question.
Back to chickens.
Immediately.
Yes.
All in favor? Did I get there yet?
With
All opposed? Hey, over here. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Talk about herding chickens.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, point of order. We are after 9 o'clock, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Just barely. Just note
Second.
that it's just barely.
Just one,
I knew she was going to do.
one more, just because I want to put it on the public hearing agenda. We currently do not have a restriction of residential uses on ground floor properties on Main Street. And it's come up several times, and I think some people think, yeah, no, you can't have, but we don't. It actually, you can put full-on residential, then there'll be no commercial uses, right, on Main Street. So I'd like to propose that residential uses are not permitted on the ground level of buildings fronting on Main Street between Hanson Street and Royal Street. You can always change that. You might want to make it, you know, a smaller area, but if we post it for that, I already had someone come in today after I had already done this, asking about, but it's not on Main Street, but wanting to take out commercial and put residential in. It's Village District, but it's not on Main Street. And I thought, oh, I don't want someone to come in on Main.
So again, that would be, in the verbiage, it'd be subject to planning board approval or?
It would be on, just in the table of uses, and in the village, residential uses would not be permitted on the ground
And the
level.
board would have no authority to alter that.
It would need to be a variance. It would not be something waivable. You could make it waivable,
But
but
there are houses in the village that,
Yeah.
there are houses already that, how would you do that?
they would be existing non-conforming. And if someone tore them down and put up a multi-story
Yeah,
building, they
Right,
need to
but
have,
why would we want to limit that? Is that a problem? I don't have a problem with somebody that says, I want to live on the first floor of this apartment building.
well, in the downtown district, ideally, you want to have businesses.
And I understand that, and I think that space is a lot more valuable as commercial, but if someone's willing to build residential and make it residential, I don't think I have a problem with that. If it's that much more valuable than commercial, I would be surprised, but I think just the cost of the property would kind of limit that. And I'd hate to say that because there's also a couple buildings on right there by like the US Cellular building and the Subway building where somebody could have an apartment in the back on the first floor, and you're like, no, it's on the first floor. You can't have that. It's only commercial,
Only fronting, so that where they're.
only fronting. Okay. Do they? Well, yeah. Okay. Okay.
So
You could post it and
Okay.
you could vote against it. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I think I'm also worried about, like, I want to drive Main Street and like see where we're talking about the extents too. Cause I know, there's like bank, but then there's houses right across the street from the bank as you get close to the Route 41 there. So turn.
Then you could, if you want to do this, what I could do is I would create a map and then I would flag ones that would become non-conforming. And then you could change it accordingly or not do anything, but I would like to get it on the table because
do we have the
water
verbiage?
under the dam,
Do you have
right?
the verbiage, that verbiage you just stated? Do we have that?
I didn't actually put verbiage there. It would be a motion to schedule a public hearing on May 27th to change the table of uses such that commercial uses, residential uses are not allowed on buildings fronting Main Street. And then I have it between two different,
Ready to make a motion?
yes, I'm sorry.
I will make a motion that we adjust the table of uses, that residential use fronting Main Street on the first floor will not be allowed from I don't know if I want to put streets down. You said Royal Street to
I said
Clark Street?
to Hanson because it's
Hanson.
inclusive and then
Yeah.
you could bring it down, but you couldn't really expand. You'd have to have another public hearing if you expanded
Okay.
it,
Okay, so it's better to go a little bigger?
in my opinion.
And keep in mind, all of a sudden, we're having a public hearing, but the board needs to discuss it and then make a motion that they're doing it.
So we say, why don't we just go to Route 41 to Hanson Street?
We could do that.
That's only a little bit further down.
And then I'll provide you a lot of background information. You can have the discussion. This is one of those things that if someone came in and wiped out a bunch of commercial businesses on Main Street, it would really have an effect. And since little rumblings, I want to make sure nothing happens before you just chew it on it.
This is the bank, I think so. Yeah, and you can go to, yeah.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I got 2 seconds over here.
Dwight's got it.
Dwight's got it. Discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, surprised you, didn't I? Real quick, I know that there is a residential exit onto the sidewalk. Is that 45 Main Street, right there by the Parks gas station? Okay, and so we might need to make a provision that says like we can't, that wouldn't be considered a residential use. I know it's an exit because 25 years ago, they had a fire there and I ran all the way up them stairs and there's a lot of them getting people out of the apartments. But, we don't want to be in a position where we say, well, that's a residential use. It's an exit onto Main Street from the residential apartments that exists now. So we need to just be a little careful of that.
Do we?
Okay, and then before the end of the meeting, I have about 3 minutes of speech to make, which I did not put on the agenda. I'll be really fast. Yeah, okay, that works.
Let's do this.
Can we continue discussion on that item real quick? I did have a comment before Andy jumped in.
Go ahead.
I think it would be very useful to have a graphic because if we start talking about people's homes and they hear they're changing something, I think that would be really useful to have. Avoid a lot of crossfire to us. Yeah, I guess that was all.
Also, this is something that I would notice the property owners too. We wouldn't just change the map because it would affect specific properties. So they would be notified by mail in addition to the wide that we do, and I would include some graphics.
I'm a little slow, but I'm thorough.
Okay.
Again, if there's currently a residence, that's grandfathered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be? There's residential there now.
No, because it's residential in perpetuity. It's if they can't, if it's currently a business and apartments upstairs, they can't turn the business into apartments.
It's got a residence there now,
Yeah.
Grandfathered.
but is it grandfathered perpetuity or into what?
In perpetuity, it always runs with the land and not with the owner. So that will protect them.
And if they did significant improvements or expansion to that building, they'd still be able to expand it underneath the residential umbrella. Okay.
Yeah.
Should, yeah. Want to make sure we're not going to limit anybody.
Yeah, it's good to think about those
Addition,
scenarios.
Like, no, would be bad.
Any other discussion? You're on a different subject.
Kind of, but I promise you I will be quick. I'm holding.
All in favor?
Thank you.
That's on the public.
Yes, so there'll be 6 hearings that night.
Now, already, Greg has violated our rule already. Go ahead.
Okay, first, coming here, I mentioned originally that our roles as representative to the planning board, zoning board, were never really defined. We were just given that job. And I've asked you to try to let you define the role. One thing that occurs to me that I could do, and I have too been pushing on this quietly about the zoning violations and the year to start and all that. I'm not going to stick my neck out in public, but if you want to write a letter complaining about that, I would be glad to present that to the town council at a public meeting. Okay. And you may get a little more attention that way. Right? And it's not just the solar field
Let's see how it evolves.
issue.
Let's see how it evolves. Go ahead.
And then the rest of it, some of this might have been in the comprehensive plan if it had been in the works at that time. What keyed me to this was the mill. There's a parking problem with Royal travel problem with Royal Park. No room for two-way traffic. So wait to hear this one. Okay. Well, we'll move the rec to under the school gym. Now, I haven't talked to any of the department heads except 1 or 2, just briefly. So this is a lot to work out, but it's a planning issue. It's a more strategic issue rather than a tactical one. The communication center is thinking about expanding. Not a lot of room in the 200-year-old building. We could move that to rec. And then we could establish a town park and skating pond at the end of Morton. Okay. We could move the ball field if we can convince the owners to the new park. Okay. And then we could expand public works on its current site. We could put the sand shed on its current site, rip down that one old shed. Okay. Then we could go down Morton one way and up Clark the other by means of crossing over through the bottom of the mill property. There's enough property there, you can do that. And we'd have to figure out building a bridge over the stream. Okay. And the more I think about that chimney, the more I think it's a long-term problem, and I think it should be asked to come down sooner rather than later. Okay, because they're going to split the ownership of that property, and then it's going to be like, who's on first, who's responsible. And I appreciate you listening to it. I know it's your fault, but it's kind of a strategic thing, solve the trap problem for sure. I don't know what the state can say about Rich, and I don't know who's going to put what. That's a whole big list.
It would be a big.
I will, thank you, Andy.
Right there, building a bridge.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And I apologize for letting us go over 15 minutes.
For listening to me. You know, my daughter.
Wasn't Andy.
That was my fault. I'll take it ahead. I'm. But
We will let you know. Right,
so
John?
I'm willing to do that. I'm already.
No. Driving down to the site. Lights are on. Ones that are
Mic off.
redneck.
Recording off? Is the recording off?